It's the Who Cares About Men's Health Sideshow. My name is Scott Singpill. I am the guy that brings the BS to the show. Also, co-host Dr. Troy Madsen, the MD to my BS.
Scott, I'm happy to be here with you.
And producer Mitch is in the mix.
Hey there, I'm back. Haven't had roller food in over 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
Well done.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, on the Sideshow, we get an opportunity to talk about some things that will have to do with health, but it's not necessarily, health issues that face men, or it doesn't necessarily always tie back to the core four, but a lot of times it does. And today we're going to celebrate another success. We celebrated Mitch's 2-year quit-iversary, but Troy also has had a goal, an objective, and achieved something pretty cool as well. Troy, go ahead and tell us what happened.
Well, Scott, we talked about this a little while ago. It's been about a year since we talked about it, but I ran the Boston Marathon. It happened a couple of weeks ago. It was one of those things that was out there, and I'd qualified for the Boston Marathon it's been about 3 years ago that I qualified for it. And then, as you know, COVID happened, and there was all that disappointment because COVID hit about a month before I was going to run the Boston Marathon in 2020. And the marathon was essentially canceled. They did this virtual marathon where you just go out and run. They send you a medal. And then it was rescheduled. I know, it was kind of like, I ran the Boston Marathon, but it was about 15 miles from my house. So it wasn't actually in Boston.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that cool. And then they had rescheduled, and we were looking at April 2021. And then they pushed it back to October 11th, 2021, and it actually happened. And it was wonderful for it to actually happen and to be part of it and to be there and to run the Boston Marathon.
Well, congratulations. And you finished.
Finished, yeah. I did finish, yeah.
How did it go?
It was great. I enjoyed it. I'll say, because everyone, is like, well, how did you do? How did you run? Well, I ran 3 hours and 16 minutes. I was really happy with that. The fastest time I've ever run in a marathon is 3:07. So it wasn't that far off of it. And that time would qualify me for a future Boston Marathon, which is always an achievement. Anytime you can qualify for the Boston Marathon, that's a big deal. So I was excited about that, to qualify for a future marathon in 2023. I think it would count for 2022 as well, just with that race. So in that sense, it was great. But the best part for me was I just enjoyed it. I did not wear a watch. I did not know my time. I just ran. I enjoyed it. It was a cool experience. And then, at the end of the day, it was like, oh, cool. It was a good time too. So I was happy with it.
Were you kind of let down then after you crossed the finish line? I mean, was there a point of like, wow, this thing is something I've wanted to accomplish, something I qualified for? It's been 2 years and, well, that's that. It's done.
It's funny. It was kind of a relief to be done. And the reason why it was a relief is because most marathons I run, I just don't tell anyone. And beforehand, I was getting some texts from people who were like, hey, good luck tomorrow. We're going to be watching how you're doing and stuff. And I'm like, guys, don't watch. Please don't watch. I don't want this kind of pressure. Come on.
By the way, I downloaded the app and followed your progress.
I know. And I'm so glad I did not know you were doing that. Because I was just like, I don't want people to be watching what I'm doing. I just want to go out and run. And it's funny, like leading up to it, it was a little bit stressful. I had this great plan where Laura was just going to drop me off at the start line. Like we stayed, 5 miles from the start line in Hopkinton, Massachusetts. And we get up that morning and she starts to drive me to the start line. We get 1 block from our hotel and the road is blocked. And I'm like, what am I going to do? They're forcing people off the road onto the highway. So I just jump out of the car. I'm like, see you later. I am running to the start line. So I am not joking. I just started running up the road because I'm like, I don't know how else I'm going to get there. Fortunately, some guy's driving up, just one of the locals in Hopkinton. He's like, hey, you need a ride? So he's like, I can get you 2 miles up. So he drove me 2 miles. So I ended up running a couple miles just to get to the start line. So it was a little bit stressful getting there.
Wow. That seems strange that they didn't plan that better. Or
well, it's probably that I didn't plan that better.
Oh, okay.
I should have known the road would be blocked off, but I just didn't find anything that said it would be. And then the race itself was kind of weird. Like I liked the way it was, but it was different than usual just because of COVID and all the health precautions. They did not have a start time. There was no gun firing and everyone starting. I was in wave number 2. And so they had several waves based on your qualifying time. And so for my wave, you basically started somewhere between 8:20 in the morning and 8:40 in the morning. And so you just kind of walked up to the start line, and I look around, and there are people kind of looking around at each other, kind of all nervous, like, do I start this? And I just was like, okay, here we go. And I just started running and just crossed the start line, and then it starts your chip timing, just started running. So it was kind of weird in that way, but I mean, it was a cool experience just because it was like everyone was spread out. I wasn't like packed in with a ton of people. And the crowds along the race, that's what they always talk about. The crowds were amazing. Like so many people were out. It was just a really cool feeling because you could tell just the community support for Boston is just huge. And that's what really makes it special. To have all these people out there all along the race route, just cheering. You could tell they were just celebrating having this race back. And it was really an amazing experience to be part of that. I will say my favorite part of the race, if people ask, and I'm hesitant to admit this, but my favorite part of the race was about mile 13. And I'm just starting to come up this hill, and I'll just hear all this screaming. I'm like, what is that? And I had headphones and listening to music. I'm like, oh, what is that? And because I didn't know exactly what happened where along the route. And I take my headphones out and just loud screaming. I come up there. This is Wellesley College. This is an all-girls college. And all these college girls, hundreds of girls, and you know, as this happened, I remembered I heard about this, are on the route just screaming their heads off. And they're holding their hands out to give people fives as they're coming by, and people aren't doing it. And I'm like, I am giving fives to every one of these girls who's going to give me five. So I'm just going down the line, and girls have their phones out, just like recording and stuff. And I'm just giving fives. It is the closest I will ever come to feeling like a rock star. Like, that is the closest I'll ever come. It was awesome. I admitted it to Laura afterwards. I'm like, Laura, I gave fives to all the Wellesley girls. And she's like, it's like, go ahead, you do that. So it was funny. It was just one of those things. And again, afterwards, I remembered I'd heard about that, just like all these college girls out there just screaming their heads off. But, again, it was cool. Like the crowds were amazing. As you get closer to town, it's just like incredible. You know, these crowds are like 10 people deep, even early in the race. Like I thought, I don't deserve this. Come on, guys, it's mile 3. You can't be cheering now. I haven't done anything. But, you know, you get closer to the end, just huge crowds as you're coming in the city. And it is a really cool feeling. So it was an amazing experience. But like I said, getting done, it was a little bit of a relief because it was like, hey, I had a good race. I felt good. I enjoyed it. Great experience to think back on. You know, you always worry you're going to go out there and just feel awful, like have some stomach issue or something, but everything went great. So it was a fun experience.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, I was happy about it. It was cool. It was definitely one of the, you know, people talk about it kind of like as the pinnacle of like, yeah, that's what you try to achieve as a marathon runner. People, they want to run Boston. It's like, I want to qualify for Boston. I want to run Boston. There are a lot of other great races out there, but that's kind of the big thing. So it was a cool thing to experience. And, and not just to be there, but just to have a fun experience with the whole thing.
And what a great story too, like how you got there. And in case somebody's listening that doesn't know that story, Troy, tell how you got started running.
Well, you know, a big part of running for me, so there's we talked a little about it before, like there was the vegetarian diet, and that had a lot to do with just getting my cholesterol checked many years ago. I mean, it's been, 15 years ago now, and seeing just some really bad numbers and saying, I got to do something about this. So that's when I started a vegetarian diet, but I didn't really start running consistently until it's been almost 7 years ago. So in March, 7 years ago, I got to a point and I said, I'm just going to try and run every day. And I said, I'm going to do 2 miles a day. I don't care how fast I go. And that's all I'm going to do. And I'm just going to do it. Prior to that, I'd put on a decent amount of weight. And again, I'd had my cholesterol numbers checked. They had improved, but still not super great. So I started out just doing 2 miles a day. And then after about 6 months of that, Laura, my wife, she was running a lot of marathons, like a ton of marathons. And she got me interested in basically got me to commit to running a marathon. So anyway, so I committed to that. And so at that point, I started to kind of increase the mileage and mix in some longer runs. So it sort of evolved from there. But it really just started saying, I'm just going to try and do it every day, 2 miles. And then it just built from there.
And I love that because that's what's kind of known as a process goal. Like it wasn't an end goal. Like you never had the goal of running the Boston Marathon or running marathons or getting a particular time. You just recognized a health issue that you realized that a little bit more activity could help. And you just said, I'm just going to do this every day for a certain number of minutes or a certain number of miles. And you did it. And then it kind of led to this. So I think that's just a great story.
Thanks. Yeah. And I think that's the big advice I would give anyone too, is just, it's not about the end point. For me, it was not about Boston. At no point did I say to myself, I want to run the Boston Marathon. I just said, I want to run. And it started out just little bits. And then it became, okay, well, I want to run a little more. And then it became, okay, well, I've got this marathon out there. I've committed to do it. I'm going to get through it. And so I ended up doing that and then enjoyed it. So I think the biggest thing is just enjoying the process. And that's what I've found is as I started doing it on a regular basis, I just enjoyed the process. And that's, I think that's what it's fortunately been for me. Sometimes the process is challenging, but I've enjoyed it. And I think for me, that's what's helped me to stay consistent.
Yeah. It went from an extrinsic reason to an intrinsic reason that you just enjoyed it. You just liked doing it. Yeah. And I think if for, anybody listening, when you try to get into any sort of activity, because we know that you need to get about 30 minutes, a little bit of sweating every day, you might stumble into something like Troy did that you then ultimately enjoy. I don't know, it's a kind of a chicken and the egg thing. Did you enjoy it because you were kind of destined to enjoy it, or did you enjoy it just because you did it long enough and you liked how you felt physically? I mean, who knows, right? And I've actually even learned from you as well. Like I used to have these goals when I'd go into the gym to lift weights that I want to be able to bench press this much or squat that much. And as soon as I kind of let that go after we had these conversations, I enjoy doing it a lot more. I don't hurt. I don't hurt myself, and I feel better and I feel healthier. So sometimes just promising that you're going to be part of the process is like 90% of the battle, and you don't have to be a superstar at it. Just go out and engage it and sweat. Find that thing that you like. If it's not the first thing you do, maybe it'll be the second or the third thing.
Along that same line, Scott, is that like when I was doing my little 5K a little while ago, it was the same sort of idea, is that when Troy said that he ran the Boston Marathon and didn't even wear a watch, my knee-jerk reaction was, what do you mean you didn't wear a watch? Like, how did you run it without knowing how fast you were going, right? This opportunity, but that's just it, is just enjoying the activity. Like when I was doing the 5K training, it's like, don't look at the distance you're running. Don't look at the time in which you're doing. Just get in the habit. Just do it and find a way to enjoy it. And that's been a big change and shift for me as I've kind of matured over the last, couple years about my feelings about health. And I really think there is something to it.
I agree, Mitch. And it's funny because before I ran the race, I kind of thought, I'll wear a watch just to see what I'm doing. Then I thought, I don't want to. And I thought back because, I think it's so much about just enjoying the process and just enjoying the experience. And then I think as you do that and you really embrace it, I think the results follow.
So Boston's done. Does that mean you're done running then?
I'm done.
Yeah. What's next?
What's next? Because, from a goal standpoint, a lot of times we make these goals, whether it's, I want to lose 5 pounds or I want to be able to do this one thing. And then, kind of you've reached the goal and then it's like, well, now what? I guess.
I know. I've had that thought. It's funny. I have had that thought. And it's funny because leading up to it, as I talked to some people, and I can't remember how it came up. I mean, when I say that, it sounds disingenuous because runners always have a way of bringing up the fact that they run marathons. So maybe that's how it came up. But I have met people who have run Boston and who said, "Oh yeah, I ran Boston," and they've stopped running. They don't run. And I have not wanted that to happen to me. So I'm still running. I'm still going. And the thing that I've come back to is I really do just enjoy the process. Like I've always told myself, I don't want this to be about a time, a certain time that I'm running, like a certain speed. I don't want it to be about Boston, about qualifying. And then once I had qualified, about running the Boston Marathon. I never want it to be about that. I've told myself I want to be doing the same thing when I'm 80 years old. Like I love running these races and seeing these old people out there and they're not running super fast, but they're just scooting along, and
they're there.
They're there. Mm-hmm. They're doing it. Right? Like that. Yeah. That to me, that is the pinnacle right there. Like, I find that just remarkable. I hope that's me, honestly, and that's kind of how I look at it.
I love that, because it seems like, I don't know, maybe it's just how guys are. When I was growing up in high school and stuff, it's like, I want to be the model on the front of the runner's magazine. I want to be the big beefy dude. And it's so cool to hear that, like, nah, I just want to be the 80-year-old who's scooting and still doing what I love. That's so different that I like
just
it.
Keep on trucking. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm taking away from it, though, it might be the same. It might be a little different. I think it seems like what you're talking about is it's like more of a journey, and Boston was just kind of a stop on that journey. Like, It's not an end point. It's not the destination. Yeah. Like any of these things we do, how can you make it into a journey, and how can you have destinations you look forward to getting to?
Yeah, no, you're right. And maybe to switch your analogy up a little bit, maybe it's more like a really long trail run. And, like some of these things are some of the peaks on the trail run, and you take in the view and you're like, it's amazing. But there's another peak, you're going to keep going. You're going to drop down a bit. You've got some climbs, and then there's something else out there, some other cool experience where you're taking in the views and just, enjoying the rewards of it. So,
or how Mitch heard your analogy, you reach the peak and then you go back down into a deep, deep, dark valley.
Right.
And then you try to figure out how you're going to get out of it.
How do I get out of it? But sometimes they are dark valleys, sometimes it's, yesterday morning, it was, and I kind of had that thought yesterday morning when I went out. I kind of had the thought, it was raining out and the temperature was in the low 30s and it was dark. And I kind of did have that thought, like, do I need to do this every day? Like I did Boston. Do I need to do it?
Your cholesterol does not know that you did Boston. So that's why you continue to do it.
That's right. My genetics do not know that I did Boston.
They're
not
care.
Just they don't care. Yeah. That's a great point too. Yeah. They don't care. They're not going to be like, oh, you're good for life. Yeah.
Yeah. You're kind of doing it for a different reason. And I think maybe Boston was just kind of a cool little outcome of, the real reason why you're doing it. And that was so, you can manage your health issue that you have and be that 80-year-old that is still out there and moving around. Yeah, Mitch, do you want to say anything to Troy before we wrap up? Do you want to give him your own personal congratulations or?
Oh my God. Yes. Congratulations,
Mitch, please
Troy. Like, no, but like, it really is really inspiring as someone who's trying to get back into fitness, who's been, struggling in his own way or one way or another, to like have a different approach and a different framework. And I really appreciate you sharing that on this podcast in particular. Just do it, just find something you enjoy and do that every single day. That is so much different than like, you got to kill yourself. You got to be sore if you're going to get those gains. It's such a different approach to health that like, I cannot tell you how like proud and appreciative I am that you have done Boston and were able to do that. So,
well, thanks, Mitch. Well, I'm obviously incredibly proud of you and what you've done with your health change. I mean, it is inspirational too. I mean, it
is actually, you know, and I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm kind of the one that's bringing the group down.
Come on, Scott.
This is why guys should talk about it, I guess. I didn't think I was competitive until this very moment right here.
See, that's the point though. It should never be a competition. And I don't think it ever should, and that's, for me, it just, 6 years ago, so this is fun. I have to say this too. So they had this board where people could put up pictures and messages to you near the finish line. So Laura posted a picture of me 6 years ago, running with her. It was the furthest I had run at that point since college. I ran the second half of the California International Marathon with her. So it was me running with her. And I said, I'll join you at the halfway point. I'm going to try and finish. I don't know if I can, but I met her at the halfway point and I did it. And I ran that second half with her. And she posted a picture that said, look how far you've come. And the picture of me, when I saw it, I was like, oh, wow, I've lost a lot of weight, I was definitely in the overweight category at that point. But I think the larger point I'm trying to make here is, you just say, hey, I'm just going to start small and just try and be consistent. And then I think over time that just builds on itself. And I hope that's the takeaway for everyone. It's a message I think we've tried to share with some of our listeners, and when we've had some of our listeners on here as well, of just the value of consistency and really just enjoying the process. And then I think the results follow from that.
Congratulations, Troy. This is a very exciting moment for all of us, I think. I was excited when you qualified, and I was excited when you were able to finally run it. And I feel a little let down now, I guess. So what are you going to do next? No, I'm just
it meant a lot to me, Scott, to get done. And Laura told me like afterwards, she's like, Scott was texting me during the race. He's like, oh, look how fast he's going. Look what he's doing. But it meant a lot. It did. I am so glad I didn't know you were doing that, but it meant a lot to me after. So, and from everyone else, like family and friends and everyone who reached out and was like, supported me. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to support you. So,
Thank you.
Troy, congratulations. It's just awesome having you on the podcast, and what an awesome accomplishment. And now we'll never speak of it again, I guess. I don't know, because you said you were never going to talk about running again.
Well, Scott, I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm just going to say thanks for your support, and I am looking forward to the day I get to track your Boston Marathon progress, and I'm expecting it's going to be in 3 years, so let's do it.
Man.
No pressure.
Yeah.